Welcome to So You Think Your Car is Fast, where we dive into the world of high-end, fast cars and explore what it truly means to have a fast car. From the latest in supercar technology to the mechanics that make these machines go, we'll separate fact from fiction and uncover the misconceptions about speed and power that exist in the minds of the general public. Join us as we put the pedal to the metal and discover what it takes to have a car that truly lives up to the title of fast.
Who's presiding and directing this mess?
Manny is our new producer, Manny Metzger.
I forgot about that guy.
You know what? From now on, when Taylor gets on, you know how Taylor he talks about the past. He reflects and he reminisces about his past a lot. We need to have Manny cue up some nostalgic music. Manny, cue the nostalgic music as Taylor, reflects on when he was 12. Okay, so I thought it would be fun if the three of us individually, would do some research and find a budget build for a car that could do 200 miles an hour and a half mile.
Oh, did we say budget car?
Wait a minute. Whose idea was this?
Was it your idea? I don't know. Whose idea?
Yeah,
whoever it was.
It was my wife's. She said we should actually buy a car and build it.
I think it was his wife's idea.
And then Todd did modify it to a much more realistic. Let's do it on paper first.
Yeah.
Well, as long as Mrs. Taylor is funding it, then I think we're great.
I said I was like, well, we're gonna have to sell a car then probably to do that. She goes, why? And I was like, well, wow. I better strike while the iron's hot. So
there we go.
You two are you're cut from the same cloth, you two. All right, who wants to go first?
Well, I guess that could be me.
All right.
So, I underthought and overthought it because that's what I do. I can't just leave it alone. So I decided that the odds were very low that you guys would choose a 911 because that would be the obvious choice. So I put together a spreadsheet for a 997.2 and I have it here, which I guess I could share, couldn't I?
Well, this is going to be interesting because if it's really cheap, Taylor's going to be extremely mad.
Well, you never can tell with bees.
Let's make this fictional, okay? This is not necessarily my build.
It is not.
Okay.
So basically what he's going to do is say, hey, Taylor, this is what you should have done.
Well, there's always this thing about what you know now versus what you knew then.
Yep.
But it's queued up in here. We can see it.
Just cue this.
Oh
my goodness. Even links?
Yeah, I got some links. We don't have to go through them all. So I just decided that what I was going to do was something completely different because that would be more entertaining, right?
Okay.
So I talked to Jared and I asked him, what the price would be for a full meal deal, 3.8 liter, because we're not trying to go completely crazy. 991. And I did find today a 991.2, a 2017 with 25,000 miles on it, or 32,000, somewhere in there. A white one.
Man, I'm slow today. I thought you said you're doing a 997.2. Okay, yeah. Okay, all right. I'm good now.
Okay, yeah.
He did say that, Taylor.
Oh, he did? Okay, because I was like, I don't really want to do this.
Yeah, that's why I said Taylor's going to be upset.
All right, no. I'm interested. I'm interested in what we have here because I.
All right, 32K for a 999.
32K miles.
I was gonna say I'll take 2.
And it's white with a red leather interior, which I like.
Is it an S?
Don't know.
Is it in the Northeast?
Don't know. Saw it on Facebook. I
Weren't
said
they all
for 129?
125 I had in my head.
Oh, wow.
120. Yeah, I think I saw that one.
So if it's listed at 129, we could buy it for 125. So I'm going to call it $125,000 for the car.
All right.
For the engine, I had it listed at 30,000. So that's take out the engine, send it to BBI, Jared, have him build it with his pistons, rods, sleeves, all the fancy stuff that he does, put it back together again, send it back. And then there's a $8,000 budget for the intake manifold, which is, these things are just really expensive. There's no real way to get around it. You can do something more on the budget side and build it out of like GT3 RS 4.0 parts, which is actually what I did because I didn't have $8,000 of a budget. But
then you need fab work and all kinds of stuff.
Since we're playing with Mrs. Taylor's money, then, $8,000.
This isn't the budget she had in mind, but we'll get to that when I get to my.
So then, I cheaped out a little bit here. I just used off the shelf CSF intercoolers because they work really well and the price is low, and relatively low in comparison to what it could be. And IPDY pipe in the back just to connect the engine to the intercoolers. And then it gets a little crazier because I get into some Cyvex stuff. So we have an S7 and our tuner network calibration, which is Wayne and Jared and team doing that. And so that's 9,000. I quoted it at 5,000 for the ECU package and 4,000 for the setup and tuning of the car. And then I put a Motec C127 dash in there because I'm a big fan of those.
That's what you have in your car, right?
That's what I have in my car, and it can do a lot of stuff. It has, inputs and outputs, which are at a very big premium on these ECUs. So I put the IO upgrade and the dash creator, which I think is kind of necessary because then that lets you, make your own dash display and move stuff around and make it do what you want it to do. I mean, if you're going to spend, $2,700 on the dash, you pretty much have to spend the $500 to get the non-canned displays. And then I put in an M&W ignition box. I think that's what we all run. We don't ever talk about these kinds of details normally, but that's what we're running, is either a Pro 16B or something very similar. Mostly just what was available at the time, I think, when we bought them. And then I have Injector Dynamics ID 2600s as the secondary injectors. Because it's the direct injection engine, we can't do like injector upgrades and fuel pump upgrades directly. We actually just say, leave that there. And then we allow the Cyvex to run an additional set of port injectors. And port injectors just means that they're injecting into the intake manifold ports as opposed to directly into the cylinder.
Old school.
Yeah, like old school. So you get both, right? You get port injection and direct injection. So you're idling and driving around on the direct injection, and then you're, when you start making power, like probably above 600-700 horsepower, then the additional stuff will keep.
Which is actually interesting because some companies that went direct injection had so much carbon buildup problems that they added direct and port injection together in the factory cars.
Yeah, my old Audi S5 had that problem. There was so much carbon buildup in the intake manifold that there's like flappers that move around depending on the RPM range, and they would stick,
gum up and stuff.
Yeah, so this is actually a really good solution. And then an Injector Dynamics BPC, which is their brushless pump controller, which is, I think, what we pretty much all run brushless pumps in the cars. I think Todd has Elixirs and I have the Injector Dynamics, and of course I think Taylor has the same as I do. Those are really, really cool pumps because, like for quite a long time I had one single fuel pump in the entire car, and it's a fuel pump like this big, it's just a tiny little thing. And they're tiny, and the thing will support, with that controller, it'll support 2,000 horsepower on ethanol or really close to it. It's insane. The way that controller works is it raises the voltage to the pump as whatever is necessary to maintain a particular pump RPM. So it just, even at really high pressures, it'll flow a ton. And that was 3,000 plus 2,160 for the injectors. So it's pricey. And then I put an Injector Dynamics fuel filter in there. That's the same one I run on my car. It's great. And then you need the secondary injection harness, which is basically the wiring that goes to the Cyvex to run the additional 6 injectors, and then fuel rails and fuel lines and all that stuff. I called it 3,000, probably pretty close. All of these numbers, by the way, I made up by the seat of my pants, other than a few things where I checked with people.
What's great is after this episode, I think all these companies are going to send us free stuff. So that's I'm excited about that.
That'll be great. I put the radium surge tank in it. I actually don't know how this would work on a 991. There may be a different way, but I thought that was at least a good starting point for $400. And their fuel pressure regulator, it's like a fuel pressure regulator and a damper in one. And somebody sent me a photo of the 991 engine and they were using this one. And I actually had already ordered this one for my car for this season, so thought it was perfect. And then I've got flex fuel and flex fuel sensor and boost control solenoid sensors. I called it $300. It's probably pretty close. It's not really a solenoid sensor, and I've got a fuel pressure sensor, which you need so that you can measure fuel pressure. It's very important for the Cyvex to know what the actual fuel pressure is so that it can set injector timing. And it's really slick because as fuel pressure lowers, like if you're having an issue, it'll actually just open the injectors longer. It knows how to do that. And if things go really bad, like fuel pressure goes completely down below a settable threshold, and shut the throttle, shut the car off, save an engine. I think we've all had a situation, except for Taylor. I know Todd and I have had it happen where something's gone wrong in the fuel system and it stopped supplying constant pressure, and had the ECU not had those safety features built into it, would have lost an engine. So, I just consider that to be almost, when you're talking about this much money, it's mandatory. And then I've got a map sensor, which is manifold absolute pressure. That's what we're reading boost with. And the reason it's absolute pressure is because, I think we talked about this before, at altitude, your base pressure can vary. So, in theory, you're like 14.5, 14.7 PSI at sea level, but, you go up, it goes down, and you want to be able to measure it directly. So basically atmospheric plus boost and have an actual number, as opposed to trying to reference off of what they call gauge pressure, which would read 0 at sea level. So really these things are actually reading like 14.4, 14.5 at ambient, and then they register boost above that. And then I've got a Todd sensor in here, which is
TNS spec.
It's TNS spec. It's a crankcase pressure sensor. And so what that will do is let us know if we lift heads, we can potentially see pressure go into the crankcase.
Or maybe blow out camshaft seals or something.
Or if we're blowing out camshaft seals, this will let us know there's a lot of pressure there. So I figured that was a lesson learned. And then I've got the PDK modifications, which are not really that extensive. The big thing, of course, is the Dodson clutch. So I'm saying $2,500 at Bill Rader to install a $1,500 wave track diff, and I called $1,500 for bracing and whatever else he does. There's some chassis bracing you can do with the PDK to kind of keep things from moving out of place, deflecting and breaking parts. Getting down into the turbos, I called $4,000 for headers from Trey, $4,000 for a V-band exhaust to fit that. So that's basically just turbo behind the turbos going to the exhaust and the exhaust tips, turbo oil water lines, and some bracketry to hold the turbos up. I called it $1,200. It's probably pretty close. 2 wastegates for $800. I got some Taylor speed sensors in here, which are turbo speed sensors, so that we do not go 177,000 RPM, because that's not any fun. Well, it is until it's not. And then I just use the same. It's exciting.
Yeah,
I use the same turbos I have on my car, the Zona 8264S's, 2 of them at 4770. And then I just was doing my normal thing, which I peruse parts, and I found some Forgeline GA1R wheels for $3,500, black, used, really nice wheels, really light wheels, lighter than stock, which is actually really hard to do. When you buy wheels for these cars, the thing you'll find is that the wheels are already forged wheels. They're super nice. They're super light. You don't really need to change them. The only reason you really want to is if you want wider ones, which we do because we want to run Toyo R888Rs in a 325 width in the back. And those will set you back $1,000 for the rears and $700 for the fronts. And I came up with a grand total there of $104,000. I guess that's also going to be plus H1. So we'll say equals D44 plus H1, so a grand total including the car is $229.
My favorite part about your budget is how it's like all like $4,000 here, $3,500 here, and then you get down to the total and it's to the penny.
I got some pennies in there because I got prices for the tires from Tire Rack earlier today.
Okay. All right.
So this reminds me of that show. What was it, Wheeler Dealers, where they put the car together, and for $1,800 in parts, we now have $4,800 in this car, but they never list labor.
Yeah, so there's definitely some of that in there. There would be a Steve bill associated with this. I was trying to estimate what that would be, and I think it's probably somewhere between 15 and 20,000, but I don't really know.
Let's just put 20 grand in there. So now we're at 149. So that's or 249. So you're sitting at 250K for your budget build.
Oh, Steve's not as big.
Can we put quotes around the budget? The word budget.
Someone
I mean,
didn't-
I guess it's somebody's budget.
Oh boy.
There's probably a lot of people that what I found is when they look at what these cars cost to build, they go, "Oh, well, I can get it done cheaper. I can, and then
Sum that out, Dan.
Here's your number.
Boom. So now we have a 991.2 with the 9A1 motor,
which is like pretty much the latest and greatest. The 991.2 is kind of like the 997.2 in that the 997.2 has basically 992 parts in it. Although they did do some revisions between there, and the 992s, of course, they changed the intercooler and turbo arrangement. It actually makes a lot more sense. I always thought it looked a little strange until I saw the 992 design. I said, yeah, that's the way it should be. But we're getting rid of half of that stuff anyway. So I figure like the 991.2 was kind of the sweet spot.
You probably need some air charge cooling help.
I have that.
Well, I mean, I know you've got the CSF intercoolers.
You think you could do it?
But I think you'd need meth.
Well, I was planning on running in 45 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay, well then, yeah, that's cool.
At all times.
Yeah, you probably should add air to water at least.
Well, yeah, we could add air to water. That would add 7,000, I think, to this number. Yeah, it's not cheap.
You're not doing it with stock intercoolers, so you have to either upgrade those intercoolers or.
Well, he's got upgraded intercoolers on there. He's got the CSF. Intercoolers.
Yeah, those are really nice. I mean, you could do AMS intercoolers. They're really nice. They're Garrett cores. The reason I kind of got onto the CSF kick is because I saw their 992 intercooler, and you heard me mention that I really liked the way that the turbos and intercoolers were set up on the 992, and that 992 CSF intercooler is just the hotness. I mean, like you want it, like it could be wall art. It's cool. So then I was looking, I started there, then I saw they have the 991 intercoolers, and I said, yeah, okay, that'll be good for my hypothetical build that I didn't, do a lot of math on. Oh, and so I also have more. Let me do that.
Billy Mays style.
But wait, there's more.
And I got a hold of our friend Stuart.
And you know what? There's no safety gear in this. There's no roll bar. There's no harness.
Well, no,
well,
yeah.
200-mile-an-hour run off the trailer, and then you're done.
Well, see, we hire a driver, so he's got a helmet and safety gear. I don't know.
Now, this is for half mile, right? This little exercise is for half mile, 200-mile-an-hour cars. How much cheaper would it be to go 200 in a mile? Which is you only need 650 horsepower to go 200 in a mile in a Porsche.
Like
a little
an
more
exhaust
than
and a tune,
yeah,
a little bit more.
I mean, that's.
I went 197 with 615 horsepower in the 996 tip. What's this, Dan? You showing an invoice?
So I got a hold of our buddy Stuart at T1, and I said to myself, well, what would it cost to send an Audi R8 to T1? Because I can't think of anywhere else to send it, to be honest with you.
Well, you could send it to Underground Racing.
I don't have Underground Racing budget, man.
Oh.
That's too much for me. And
what about B Rogue?
I don't know.
I met those guys.
I don't know if you've ever been to T1.
Yeah, I have. I'm just throwing options out.
Everything Tony does is first class. I mean, it's ridiculous. And
yeah, when we have T1 here local, it doesn't make sense to.
I tried to get Tony to work on my 911 for me originally. That was like the first place that I went, and he said he doesn't do 911s, and I was sad, but I mean, obviously it worked out very well. But that's where I would go for anything is to Tony. And now that he's doing the V10s, I figure it's pretty much just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So I mean, basically what this package is a stock engine, 200-mile-an-hour half mile, 1,400 wheel horsepower. Stock engine.
Okay.
So what's the price of a good example of an R8 right now? 230?
No, not that much.
I feel like they've come down significantly just in the last couple months.
150 to 175, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and I feel like 6-8 months ago, they were 185 plus.
Yeah. Todd's numbers are accurate, but 6 months ago numbers maybe. But this has everything. It has their V10 turbo kit, Zona rotor turbos, air to water intercoolers, all the intercooler piping, 3.5-inch exhaust. It has their injector. It doesn't say it, but I'm pretty sure it's the injector dynamics. Oh no, that's a high flow brushless water pump. My mistake. That's really cool. Transmission work, Promax clutch upgrades, billet this, billet that, billet second gear upgrade.
The built trans anyway.
Yeah, it's so I noticed this happen a while ago. John Shepard sent his R8 to Dallas Performance, and for reasons I'm not entirely clear on, but everybody says the R8 and the Huracan are basically the same car. They're not in the transmission. Like the R8 transmission is not as strong as the Huracan trans, so you need some additional upgrades, otherwise they break.
Well, and I think I was talking to a guy with an R8, and they've made a lot of changes in the years. There's like 2 or 3 variations in the transmissions, and I can't remember what years he told me. It was like 2018 or newer had the better transmission by a significant margin, I want to say.
Yeah, I don't know the details either, but I know you're right. There's definitely some things that happened in the different years, and like I think pretty much just the newer ones are stronger, but beyond that, I don't really know. And I figured that none of us would do 911, so like I said, I overthought the underthink, and then I said, well, if I was going to do another car to go half mile racing, I wouldn't do a 911 because I've already done one, but I would also because I love them, so I kind of wanted to have both things, and this is probably what I would do. I would buy the R8 because my missus loves them. And then I could send it and have the turbo kit put on it and just burn the receipts and not tell her. And yeah, so that would work great. Get me in a lot of trouble. And then, transmission, wave track rear differential. Somehow I glossed over that, but that was in same exact rear diff, obviously different application that I had in my 911 setup. And yeah, there's the brushless fuel pump, brushless pump controller, ethanol fuel system. See, they're using ID 1050s. You can use small injectors when you have 10 of them.
Yeah.
So that's nice. And a Motec ECU, transmission control, TCM reflash. So same kind of thing that Taylor's doing with his PDK with Mitch and Wayne. Sensor kit, NGK race spark plugs. You laugh. Those spark plugs are like $75 a piece.
Really?
What?
Yeah. I'm not joking. I want to say the ones I was using are NGK R7433s. NGK R7433.
It looks like this quote's only good for 30 days, so you better get on that.
Yeah. Well, here they are, and
I was running out.
Yeah.
Here they are at Jegs. I got them for
$60.
$59.99 a piece. That's not terrible. Yeah, when you gotta buy 10 of them, that's $600 in spark plugs. And
you're sure that's just one plug and not like a package of 4 or something?
Yeah, that's the way of things. You have the same ones in your engine. Not these. Well, no, you have the direct injection. Todd does. That's a good point. I didn't know what to use for spark plugs in the direct injection engine.
I have an extra set sitting in a box at home that I take to the events with me. Like I'm gonna change the plugs real quick.
Well,
Right.
where are the plugs? Because the plugs are like in the cylinders on your car. Are they just in the same spot?
I think they are. Well, I don't know. I've never done a plug job myself on this one.
Yeah, direct injection engines are a bit of voodoo magic to me because squirting the fuel into the cylinder where the pressure is 2,000 psi, that's just weird stuff.
Now, I remember from my N54 days, those direct injection motors, the plugs, the threads on them are significantly longer than you think on a regular plug. So maybe there's something there. I don't know.
Of course, this is a major drawback too. All parts, labor, and modifications performed are designed and intended solely for legally organized and sanctioned closed-course off-road competitions use. Yeah, well, I guess it means it doesn't pass emissions. So
Yeah.
It's a event day car only at that point.
Oh, well, forget it.
Well, the technicality, that's what, people ask, hey, is it street legal? I mean, technically, if you modify any of the emission stuff from the factory, it's not quote unquote street legal anymore.
Yeah.
Like even if you put a high flow catalytic converter on it, it's not technically street legal.
You said Bill Rader gearbox prep, but then you also added 3,000 in a diff and PDK bracing.
I think that's just labor. The Bill Rader part's labor to install the diff.
Yeah, install the diff, install the clutch. He does do some, replaces some hardware here and there, and does some extra, torquing and, Bill Rader secret type stuff to the box to keep it together.
So are we looking at a 1,400 horsepower 991 too?
Yeah,
Probably.
Okay.
yeah.
Cheaper to get 1,400 out of a Porsche than it is an R8.
50 grand cheaper. No, not really. It's only 30 grand cheaper.
Oh, I guess
Now,
it is.
is that T1 bill? Does that include labor? I'm sure it does, right?
Yeah, the T1 build was everything.
Taylor, what you got?
Okay, so I do have a spreadsheet, guys. I have let's see.
Oh, you guys came prepared.
So,
Yeah. There you go.
computer skills.
Oh, I knew it was gonna be a Mustang. That was my guess. I was like, his son has the Mustang.
It's because I was trying to keep this budgety,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I broke the budget, but I felt like we had to do a 911 because we know them, and and people will want to hear what we have to say about it.
I guess I can't hide anything. It's just hanging out there in the wind. Now, I took some liberties here because I don't know all the details.
Yeah, I didn't know some of the details about the 991 either. Like, I think there's probably some things that I missed.
Well, and I wasn't able to get quite the info that I was planning on for this, but I did get confirmation on some things.
Well, this is dangerous because now Taylor has looked into making another car.
I know. Okay, so all right, so you guys ready for my spiel?
Yeah.
Okay, so the whole thing, I was talking to my wife about this because I know this sounds weird, but like I'm super impressed by these third generation Coyote Mustangs, right? So like the 2008 and newer. And I bought my son one, and maybe I'm a bad dad because I bought him a 2018 GT 10-speed for his first car. I mean, #CarDad, right? So I was impressed. So I kind of watched him, and then at I want to say it was Abilene. I was thinking about getting my son some modifications for Christmas, kind of thinking about it at the end of the year. And so I met this guy. I don't know if I should say names or not because I haven't cleared it with him. So we might hold on that. But I met this guy that went out to Abilene, and he had a customer built car that he brought out, and he ran a 192 in Abilene. And so I reached out to the owner of the car. I talked to him. I can get some more development on it, but it's a relatively small list of modifications. And the crazy thing about this Mustang is it's a stock motor, like heads, cams, bottom end, Ford. Okay. So what I did, I got on cars.com and I typed in a couple parameters. I did less 30,000 miles or less, 2018 newer with the 10-speed, the 10R80 transmission. And I just looked at the range of Mustangs. And there is a range. There's 12 on cars.com in the US that meet this criteria, and they range from $27,000 to $35,000 for the car. The thing about the Mustangs from shopping for them is there's lots of different packages. There's performance package, there's performance package 1 and 2, there's premiums, there's base, whatever. So I kind of thought about just get the cheap one, right? If we're going cheap, we're going to go cheap, and it's probably lighter weight anyway because it has a lot less of the electronic stuff. And they put a Hellion sleeper turbo kit on it.
Do you guys know my friend the Viking? Did you guys ever meet him?
That sounds familiar.
He's like 6'8". We call him the Viking because he's the man of Nordic proportions. He's just huge. And but he had or has an 03 Cobra, which I used to have back in those times too. Although he's kept his all these years.
Terminator.
He had the original Hellion turbo kit, like when they first got in business.
Okay.
On his Cobra. I know they make really good stuff. So when I saw you had Hellion there, I'm like, oh yeah, I know who those guys are. They're pretty cool.
Well, so this Mustang that I'm talking about that did 192, and I know that's not 200, but you know, there's some stuff there. He told me he's got a Hellion sleeper turbo kit. And when he ran the 192, he had just and if you go on Hellion's website, there's like 1 million different options you can do on their turbo kits if you're going to buy them. In fact, I think the kit starts at $7,000 all the way up to the big boy kit that I did. It's like $19,500. So there's a lot of options that come in there, but this particular Mustang ran 192.5 on 6266 precision turbos. Okay, so that's not the highest, that's not the biggest turbos that you can get. And then there's some options there. You can get like I think it's a 6-inch thick intercooler core is one of the upgrades on there. They have an entire fuel system that they call it the Hellion spec fuel system. It's a 4A triple fuel system. I don't even know what everything is on it, but it's basically $3,500 worth of fuel system. What I don't know on that fuel system is if it comes with the injectors, because it didn't have like an itemized list. I'm sure they'd provide you with one, but the 192 mile an hour Mustang had ID 1300 injectors, and I'm thinking you could probably run 1300 or bump them up to the 1700. So that's where I've got. Okay, so I've got 27 to 3500 for the car, 13 to 19 and a half for the turbo kit. I think if you have any chance at running 200, you're going to have to spring for the near $20,000 turbo kit. And if you do need injectors, you're looking at $1,900 to $2,400 for injectors. This car also has a built 10R80 transmission. And there is a giant range if you surf the internet as far as what's involved there. So I don't know. You'd have to spec out some research. I have a love-hate relationship with transmissions because I actually used to be in the automatic transmission industry, and it's full of deception and black magic and shady stuff. So there are companies, or there have been companies out there that they sell these transmissions that they claim handle something, and really when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's like they put in an extra clutch and a washer, and it's literally $14 worth of parts that they're charging you $7,000 for. So I don't know. What I did find is there's lots of reputable companies that build the 10R80, and the parts there, they range anywhere from like $3,500, or you can just where you buy the kit and then you have to pay somebody to build it. The $10,000 is actually you buy the transmission already built. This particular car has a carbon fiber drive shaft. There's some ranges out. That's the crazy thing about Mustangs is any part you want, there's like 14 different manufacturers you can choose from. So that's what I've got as basically the kit that this guy used. This $19,500 price for the Hellion kit, though, includes their 68 millimeter turbos, which are, a decent amount bigger. And I have heard that this Mustang is actually getting upgraded to the larger turbos. Don't quote me on that. Protection stuff. It seems to me that in the Coyote motors, replacing the oil pump gear and the crank sprocket, there's one of those terms that we can use with race fluid and sprockets. Sprocket is what that was supposed to be.
No, fool me. Yeah.
I was learning some new Mustang stuff.
Sprockets.
Like, they have
sprockets
now.
on
That sounds like a
Mustangs. They're
Mustang.
terrible. So it does have the oil pump gear, a crank sprocket, and then the valve springs have been upgraded. I don't know with what specs. There's a bunch that you can choose from. I got on like American Muscle and just saw what the price ranges were, $300 to $700. I've got to think, I don't know if this car was running methanol, but I've still got to think you need methanol as a help with that kind of power, especially in the half mile. I mean, intake temps just skyrocket. This car also has lightweight brakes that I have no specs on. And then it has some Weld S80 wheels, which are some lightweight drag type wheels and the brakes. So my prices here include the car, but do not include tuning, safety, or installation. But I've got a price range of building the car between $55,000 and $82,000. So I don't know what the Mustang install rates are being. I don't know what they're being quoted at, but maybe $10,000, $15,000. I don't know. And then I know this car is probably tuned by Palm Beach Dyno because Palm Beach Dyno tunes a lot of this shop's Mustangs, which I hear they have a great reputation. And if I were to build this, I would obviously need a roll bar, but I would start ripping out some interior, do some weight reduction, get rid of the back seats, maybe do some lightweight seats in there.
How much does a 2018 Mustang weigh?
I don't know.
4,500 to 4,800 at least,
maybe. But so here's the crazy thing, and I'm just pulling up a little communication I had with the owner of this car, which is he said he's probably not doing
3,500 to 3,800 pounds is what.
Oh, that's not bad. That's reasonable, more reasonable, and I'll bet you could get 500 pounds out of it pretty easily.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so check this car out, right?
I do know that your numbers are probably pretty accurate because if you go to Fat House Performance
they're a big Mustang builder too.
In Indianapolis, they have like a 1250R package, and that's like $100,000 out the door, not including the car, obviously. but it has a 2-year warranty.
Well, what I've noticed too is if you start building like the Shelbys, the cost jumps significantly.
I think I don't know what that base car would need to be.
I don't know either. I mean, this was done just off of a GT, but this car I'm talking about, his fastest 60 to 130 is 3.8.
Well, that's fast.
His fastest 100 to 150 is 3.48.
That's also fast.
Wow.
He's gone 8.6 at 160 in the quarter and 192 in the half. He thinks he probably could have eked out a 195 on the 62, 66 turbos. So I'm thinking if you did this, you got some good cooling. I don't know if methanol would accomplish that, or you'd have to do some air water intercoolers and put the bigger 68 turbos on there with a little weight reduction. I think you'd have a shot at cracking 200.
Yeah, I think it would.
Less than $100,000 with the car in it.
You're gonna have to tape up every seam. You're gonna have to take the mirrors off.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to do everything.
Part of the fun. Like we need to start getting to that level of effort with our stuff.
Well, hell, I tape up my sunroof simply because I don't want it caving in.
The crazy thing. So when I was talking to this guy, he's a real nice guy. He was telling me, and you know how the Mustang world's quarter mile for the most part. There are guys that come out and run half mile in Mustangs, and there's several local shops that bring their cars too, and it's always crazy. And I know dynos are not the end all, but you know, you've got guys out there that talk about a 1400 to the wheels Mustang, and it's running a 187 or 190 in the half.
We see the same thing with the Camaros, and we see the same thing with the Vettes.
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, are their dynos just really happy, or do they have traction problems, or do they just, combination of the two, and they just never can turn it up all the way because they can't hook up? Or
maybe. I mean, this guy told me. I asked him. I said, "Are you coming to Kansas or Abilene?" And he goes, "Nah, man." He said, "I don't think we're going to run a half mile anymore. It's too hard on the car." And I thought, that's one thing people don't think, that a lot of people run quarter mile out there, but they don't realize that extra stress of going wide open throttle that long.
Well, your engine generates two things, right? Energy or horsepower, and whatever doesn't get converted into linear force to go down the track is heat. Yep. So you sit there at that big end of the track in fifth and sixth gear for a really long time, at least in our cars. Who knows what it is? Maybe I don't know what gear the Mustang's in, but it's loading the engine a ton and it's just pumping out the heat. And that's why we have air to water intercoolers in all of our cars now, is because we don't really need to worry about recovery of cooling the cores down. We just have to have enough intercooler capacity to get through those 13 to 15 seconds.
Yeah. So I thought, I don't know. I don't know if you can build a car cheaper than that to do.
I don't think so.
Oh, yes, you can.
Oh, okay. No. Here we go. Now, remember, no motorcycles, Todd.
Well, getting back to why we don't think the Camaros and the Mustangs can really, eke out that last 5-6 mile an hour is because they're bricks.
Okay.
Corvettes, on the other hand, that's a good
less brick.
Less bricky. Yeah. Well, that being said, my budget build is a C5 automatic.
Okay.
And I was inspired by Ty Weissman, my buddy in San Antonio, who has built a very reliable, fast C5 automatic. And so I reached out to a buddy of mine here in Houston named Steven, who owns LMR, late model Racecraft. And I said, hey, what would it take to have a C5 go 200 in the half? And he's like, well, we have base model C6 automatics doing 194 with about 1,100 wheels.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. He goes, so let's say we take a C5, the engine builds maybe $15,000 on the top end, right? Have about $10,000 in the drivetrain, upgrading the rear end, CV axles, tube, drive shaft, upgrade, things like that. He says upgrade the fuel system, that'd be about $4,000 or so. The turbo kit, maybe 10 G's in the turbo kit. And then the cost of the car, I went online and I found a 2001 automatic C5 with 21,000 miles on it for $20,000.
So you want an automatic?
Yeah.
Are you, and this is base, right? Well, I guess automatic. They didn't make a Z06 automatic.
Yeah, this is just a base C5.
You could get a fixed roof coupe, right? The FRC C5, which was the lightest one they made.
But I don't know if you're going to pay more for that. Who knows?
I don't know either these days.
I think they get a little premium.
That's what everybody wanted back then, and I remember those well. It was a Z06 without those weird brake ducts.
Yep.
Oh, is that what it was?
Well, and the smaller engine too.
And without the engine, I mean just the chassis.
Yeah. Now remember, I had a built twin turbo C5.
Oh, I saw one of the pistons and rods from that recently.
Yeah, that was special situation.
I'm trying to add my screen, but it's not working. Manny, fix that for me, will you?
I'm not allowed to get a Corvette though.
So I have a grand total on the high end of $59,000, including the car.
Well, you definitely win the budget prize.
Yeah, is that labor too?
That's labor. That's the price of the car. Now I don't know about any safety gear.
You don't have wheels and tires and
no. Wheels and tires. Come on. Okay, so what do you buy with those forged stars? Maybe buy some forged stars. You can get those cheap. $1,000.
Call it 2,000.
I mean,
$2,000, right? 60 grand,
and then another 1,500 in tires.
Okay,
now,
so
this was eye opening because do you remember my light colored silver 996, the 6-speed that did so well in the mile 227? That car I bought done. He had just finished it at Protomotive and he sold it immediately. I bought that car with 19,000 miles. It made 1,000 horsepower when I bought it. I bought it for $59,000. That of course, obviously won't ever happen again, but yeah, 59 grand. So I thought that was funny how that turned out to be the same price. But yeah, Corvette C5 automatic will get you there. 1,500 wheel horsepower.
So I have this question then. Why don't we see more Corvettes break 200?
That's a great question because you see 1,500 horsepower Corvettes out there running like 201.
Yeah.
202. They're not killing it. The only Corvette really killing it is Morris Malone.
And he does kill it.
It's 230, 240. Yeah. So I don't know what he's doing, but well, it takes a lot more to do that in a Corvette, I guess.
You take one look at Morris Malone's setup and his dad out there with him, and you're like, those guys are racers,
right?
Like they are not messing around, those guys.
No, and they're probably not even driving that to Cars and Coffee.
No. I mean those guys.
That's my goal. I still want mine to go to Cars and Coffee.
That entire family is just like, they are fast. Like I have these mental images of Morris's dad driving with the truck at 120 miles an hour down the freeway. Like just a fast family.
So it was interesting. So we actually kind of went from high end to low end. Really, we went from 350,000 down to 59,000. So that's interesting on what it takes to get a car to 200.5 mile.
I like the C5s. I do. And when I bought my C5 first, it was when I was having some financial situations, some work stuff, and so I had to give up the Porsches. And I bought a C5. It was built already, twin turbo. I bought it and I thought, why did I waste all that money on a Porsche? This has everything the Porsche did and then some for a third the price. But there are some gremlins that creep up in those C5s, man. The electronics really struggle in them, like door lock actuators and windows. And there was this thing where like I'd lose power to one side of the car and then had to reach into the door jamb and jiggle the wiring harness it was like some silly stuff like that. And but otherwise I really do like the C5s. I actually know where a good one is for sale. I knew it's a 3-owner, and I knew the second owner well, and I know the third owner well, and the first owner was the second owner's dad. I didn't know him, but I guess it's a convertible automatic, but it's a nice car. I like the C5s.
Thank you for listening to So You Think Your Car is Fast podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. Also want to thank Redenzo Radar, redenzo.com/BHT for discounts. Also want to thank Evo Spec Engine Development and Force Performance.